So tell me a little bit about just the idea of being an entrepreneur. You know, one of the reasons why we do these things, we do these conversations, is because there is a unique life to that entrepreneurial sort of spirit. You need to accept a lot of things that are going to happen being an entrepreneur. You need to carve your own way. All the things that sort of you might not have to deal with if you go another way, another
Right.
path. But what do you think about just being your own business person and entrepreneur?
I think that entrepreneurship is the ultimate freedom. It gives you an agency in your life that I don't think a lot of lifestyles give you. It does come with a ton of responsibility. It's terrifying, and it can be really hard. But for me, it's so worth it.
Yeah.
I think that for people who have the personality, it's a no-brainer. But the challenge is that you have to find a way to make it work.
Right. But I mean, within your own sort of world of how you can make it work. You know, like you said before, I love the idea of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom gives you that allowability to say, I want to make this work, and you can be really creative about
Absolutely.
how you make that work. Yeah.
You get to decide so much about your life and about your work and your clients.
Yeah. Because you've had, I mean, early on you worked at a couple of places. Was it a very deliberate decision? Was it like, gee, I'm going to go and just do my own thing because I need that freedom? Because I think that's the overriding positive of this that the other stuff doesn't outweigh.
It's interesting because when I was growing up, my father was an entrepreneur, and he was trying to get me started on entrepreneurial adventures like every other week.
Yeah.
It was selling perennials on the side of the road. It was all of these things.
Well, that's cool.
How can this girl have a business? But I had traditional jobs, and actually in a factory that he started was my first real job. But I didn't realize that I wanted to be an entrepreneur until I worked for an entrepreneur in the marketing company that I worked for in Pittsburgh.
And you saw that that was a model that you were able to watch.
Yeah, he shared that with me. I was close enough to see it in action.
And he explained to you how he was setting things up and how he was doing stuff.
He did. He was pretty open about the experience of being an entrepreneur.
Good.
And he was very involved in the entrepreneurial community locally. So I had a tremendous resource that way. And also the nature of the work in that job was that I would go along as the writer and document in words the business as described in the branding meeting.
Right.
So instead of just documenting creative standards or whatever, a creative brief for the graphic team, we would also develop the language. And so I got insight into every single client's business at the same time as seeing how this gentleman was running his business.
At the end of the day, do you see the beauty of it? I mean, beyond freedom, do you see it maybe you being able to sort of give to it more than you could have in other traditional ways of doing business, which really then expands who you are as a person?
Absolutely.
Because you're sort of giving more.
It engages the passion of an individual in a way that's really special. And that's where I connect with my clients. But I think that it's hard when you're in the structure of an institution to really tap into what drives you. I think that people experience it to certain degrees, but when you're an entrepreneur and you are chasing your vision every day and you're responsible for making it happen in the world, that's a level of engagement that's just unparalleled, I think.
Yeah, it's awesome. I know. I think you articulate it so well. But that is the idea, is that it's stretching you and going deep into other things that you might not have actually been able to or been required to do at a company where you might just have a good job, but they have a specific description for what you do. And the entrepreneurial thing is that you change that description daily.
Yeah, and it gives you the
things,
freedom to create things that don't exist yet.
Yeah.
That there's not a paradigm for currently.
Which is great.
That's how private industry drives change in the culture.
Yeah. I mean, do you recommend it do you sometimes recommend it to friends and say, I see you're going the digital route, this is great, you should get on the entrepreneurial bandwagon?
It's kind of like driving across the country.
Yeah.
Like, there's a certain segment of the population that's driven to do that.
Yeah.
And I think everybody should do it.
Right.
And I, like, have hope for everyone that they, get to at least understand what entrepreneurship is all about.
Right.
And make a decision for themselves. But you have to be really well prepared.
Right.
And you have to consider your resources very carefully before you embark on
Right,
it.
right. Sometimes I'm really sort of, too overexcited. And I say,
Right.
oh, sure, you should do your own thing. There are certain things that you need to warn people about.
Absolutely.
And say, this is very, you have to be very responsible. You have to wake up every day and be very proactive. You have to be very self-driven, self-initiated. Like really get things moving all the time. Because nobody else is in that driver's seat, so you gotta like push yourself.
The way that I see passion is that it makes it so that you kind of can't help doing the thing that you're driven to do.
Right.
And then entrepreneurship is
Right.
monetizing that.
Right. And you've loved it since the moment. I mean, you've never now just thought, well, maybe I should go back.
I think about it.
Dude,
I
go back to
think
the
about
corporate
it
world and-
a decreasing amount of times during a year now.
Yeah.
But there's certainly an appeal to what might just be the mythology of stable employment.
Yeah.
Because I think that the future of work is diversification, and I think that the safest thing that anyone can do, whether they're in a job traditionally or they're an entrepreneur, is to diversify their income so that they're not beholden to one entity's success to be okay in life.
Right.
But still, even though I know that traditional organizations are as, beholden to the rules of the market and
Right.
the evolution of work, it still can be appealing to consider going back into an organization.
Yeah. Isn't it hard? I mean, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs who say it's just such a lifestyle choice. This balance that you can figure out, like we were saying before, this personal sort of customized balance that you can create, that to go back to another place where they dictate that balance.
Right.
Where they sort of tell you this is what you're doing. And I know a lot of traditional companies would say they try not to do that now.
Right.
But I think just in their DNA, there's a tradition, there's a way of doing work at traditional places that would be trickier for people to comfortably go back to because they've experienced this freedom.
It's kind of about boundaries. If you're not skilled at setting your own boundaries,
Right.
then it can be really challenging to manage projects and clients the way that you need to, because there's so many things to manage, and it requires so much of your focus. But if you want to have someone set those boundaries for you, then you're probably the personality that's going to succeed inside an organization.
Right. Right. But if you have the if you actually feel empowered that you can actually set your own,
Right.
then that's the entrepreneurial path.
Very often when I talk about what I do, people's reaction is that they would do their dishes, they would crochet, they would play with their dog, they would play Nintendo, like they would do anything
Right.
but work.
Right.
And I'm like, well,
You need to be driven.